Troubling news. The SAA, just 3 weeks back in the air and already there are problems. Staff picketed outside the headquarters today saying they're unhappy with working conditions. They're complaining of unfair hiring processes. They say their salaries have been cut by over a third. SAA says all agreements are the result of wide consultations. They're equitable and fair. It's assuring its customers the airline remains operational and business continues. But unions are threatening to down tools if their demands are not met. eNCA reporter Heidi Giokos has been following that story and she joins us in studio now. Hello, Heidi. So, you have covered every aspect of SAA all through their 18 months of business rescue, then the news that the Takatso consortium was going to buy 51%. That process, of course, is still underway. And then the wonderful news that they'd be back in the skies. And in fact, I flew back from Cape Town on an SAA aeroplane and it felt like a blast from the past, but it felt good. And now we hear this news. So what have you been able to establish from NUMSA and the Cabin Crew Association about the grievances that they're having?
Yes, Sally. So it's quite unfortunate that SAA finds itself in this position where workers are extremely unhappy. Workers picketed today outside SAA Airways Park, the headquarters of SAA, indicating that they have not been able to engage with the CEO and the management of SAA. They've also made it very clear that they're unhappy with the fact that workers got a massive salary cut, which they are saying it's about 35% salary cuts, but they are of the belief that the executives and the management of SAA got a salary increase. They're saying instead of workers getting a salary increase, they got a salary cut. What's also interesting is that NUMSA and SACA are indicating that when the restructuring and the retrenchment process was underway during that business rescue process, they started off a training laying off scheme. So those that were not retrenched or did not take voluntary severance packages were part of the scheme that would be trained for about 12 months and would be paid a stipend. And should the airline require those services again, they would take from that pool of people. It's about 300 people. NUMSA and SACA are claiming that people are being called back that were given voluntary severance packages and retrenched, and they're not tapping into the pool of the 300 people that were part of this laying off scheme. But it seems as though they can't engage with they can't engage with SAA, they can't get a clear answer with SAA, and they quite uncertain as to why they can't get clear answers. They're threatening to down tools if their demands are not met. And Sally, we all know what that 2019 strike did to the national carrier. But let's listen to some of the other demands that NUMSA and SACA have put on the table.
For months, we've been asking SAA management to engage with us. We have a CEO who blatantly refuses, and he said that categorically, to engage with Labour. He shuns us off to other people. So our members are saying the conditions that have unilaterally been imposed on them are not acceptable to them. For instance, they have taken a 35% wage cut. Their salary, imagine you bought a house, you bought a bond, you got a bond based on what you used to earn. Now it's gone down to about 13,000. You can no longer afford what you used to. While management and the upper echelons have taken increases in salary. That's blatant. Conditions of employment such as allowances, shift allowances, night work allowances, housing, medical aid are not there. And this was done unilaterally. And they are told to, be grateful you have a job. And this is why they're here. We've cried, they've spoken to us, they've spoken in corners, but today is a demonstration, a petition around how they've been abused by this company in the name of Team SAA, the new SAA. This is not the new SAA when people are this unhappy and management is not speaking to Labour. We need to collaborate and talk if this new SAA will be successful.
I mean, it's interesting, Heidi, because the relaunch of SAA, that is a separate thing to this conclusion of this business rescue, which is seeing 51% bought by the Takatso consortium, with the Department of Public Enterprises remaining with 49%. It's a separate thing entirely. It's looking complicated and messy, just from my perspective. What is SAA saying?
So, Sally, we've been trying to reach out to SAA for a couple of days now, in fact, to ask them why they're also not flying to certain routes that they were supposed to fly as of the 27th of September, a week after they took off to Cape Town. So we've been trying to reach out to them. It's been a little bit difficult to get a hold of them, and today we thought we'd finally get either the CEO or someone from management. But we understand that only a statement has been sent out, and the head of HR who received the memorandum. But what's interesting here, Sally, and I'm just going to read this part, where the SAA CEO says he spent a lot of time with staff and groups prior to restart and recognises the hard work and dedication. He also goes on to say that he's been in constant engagements with all stakeholders involved at SAA. So this is very different to what NUMSA and SACA are saying. They're saying, we don't even know what the CEO looks like. We've only seen him on TV, whereas the CEO is saying, but I've engaged, I've had a conversation with you. So it's quite concerning that this is what the unions are saying, yet the CEO is saying, I've had a discussion with you, I understand the demands and I understand the needs of the workers. What's also key here is that the head of HR made it very clear, and the statement from the CEO today saying, that agreements and arrangements that were made prior to business rescue or before the airline went into business rescue cannot be, they cannot stick with those agreements and arrangements. Things have changed. It's a smaller airline. It's a much smaller fleet. And you're moving from 4,000 workers to just under 1,000. So those agreements apparently cannot be met. But if we can just listen to the head of HR who goes into more detail as to they just cannot meet those agreements and those arrangements pre-business rescue.
And we had to act on the mandate that we have been given as an interim executive. And as an interim executive, we can assure you that we are looking at the issues. We will not go back and we will not revert to everything that was there pre-business rescue. But we will listen, we will hear you. Those that we will fix, and we can fix, we will fix. But we will not, and I repeat, not be able to go back to everything that existed pre-business rescue. I think you yourselves are aware of some of the practices that happened there that cannot be continued. You yourself are aware of the work that we did to cancel the regulating agreement because it was not sustainable. You yourselves are aware of those that we have to deal with that are not sustainable, but it is our utmost genuine commitment to make sure that the executive deals with everything with empathy, with transparency, and with conscientiousness.
So striking a sort of empathetic note, but at the same time saying we just cannot stick to those agreements. And it's a really interesting period, quite a grey era. I'm looking forward to speaking to NUMSA's Bagamile Hlobi Majola a little bit later this hour to get more details from her. Heidi Giokos, thank you so much for that update on SAA. Let's